This is the best tasting cake I've ever had, full stop, not just a gluten-free cake. Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm going to be attempting to make Bon Appétit's best chocolate coconut macaroon cake. This recipe happens to be gluten-free, dairy-free, and perfect for Passover, but Claire promises it's so delicious you're gonna wanna make it year-round. I am a huge chocolate coconut macaroon fan, so I'm really excited to try this recipe for the first time today and walk you through it. I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every single Wednesday. If you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Without any further ado, let's see how this goes. To make the cake batter, I'm going to start by toasting some almonds. So these will need to toast for about 8 to 10 minutes and then cool down to room temperature before I proceed. So the chocolate flavor in this cake is actually coming primarily from melted chocolate. So I'm going to chop up a few bars of dark chocolate. The pieces don't need to be all exactly the same size, we're just melting this down. Next, I'm combining with 1 cup of virgin coconut oil. It would have been easier to melt the coconut oil and then measure out 1 cup versus trying to pack the coconut oil into a liquid measuring cup like I'm doing, and then you'll just melt this in a double boiler until it's fully liquefied. Alternatively, you could pop this in the microwave. So while the almonds and chocolate mixture are cooling down a little bit, I'm preparing my pan. So the recipe called for a 10-inch cake pan. I had only an 8-inch and 9-inch pan. I found a conversion table online that I'll link to in the description box below, but I felt pretty confident I'd be able to bake this cake successfully in my 9-inch cake pan. However, I wasn't sure if all the batter would fit, so I also prepped a few muffin tin liners just in case. The recipe said to combine the dry ingredients in a food processor and pulse to combine. Since I don't have a food processor, I'm just using my blender, which worked out okay for me. It's important to let the almonds cool completely before you do this step, otherwise they'll release a lot of their oil and you're not going to have a dry crumbly mixture. It's going to be kind of like a nut butter actually, so it's really important to have your almonds dry. Once you add the coconut, you're pulsing just to get it combined. You're not trying to totally pulverize that coconut. You still want to have a little bit of chew and texture to the cake. Last, I'm just weighing out my granulated sugar and my packed light brown sugar. And now we can actually start building the cake. So there are no rising agents in this cake. All of the volume comes from the eggs. So we've got 6 large eggs at room temperature, and you are going to mix these until they are super light and fluffy. So you are whipping these on high speed until they are completely white and fluffy. Once they reach that stage, you want to switch out your whisk attachment for the paddle attachment, and then you're going to slowly stream in your melted and cooled chocolate coconut oil mixture. It's really important that this is cooled down to room temperature, otherwise you're going to scramble your eggs. Once thoroughly mixed, you can go ahead and just pour in the dry ingredients. You don't want to beat all the air out of this mixture, so you're going to pulse it just long enough to get everything evenly incorporated. My stand mixer has a paddle attachment with a scraper built in. If you don't have this, you're going to want to stop and scrape the bottom of your bowl at the end. So Claire said that this cake doesn't rise too much during baking, so I felt pretty comfortable filling within a ½ inch of the top of the pan. So it did puff up while baking, it was right to the rim. Fortunately, it didn't overflow. The ultimate test of when your cake is done will be that a toothpick or cake tester inserted into the center of the cake comes out clean but greasy. After letting the cake cool for 15 to 20 minutes in the cake pan, you're ready to turn it out onto the serving dish to let it finish cooling completely. So this crunchy topping is semi-optional, but I would say highly recommended. It does, however, require a second type of coconut flake and a second type of almond. So if you're trying to watch how many ingredients you're needing to buy or limit your investment, maybe you'll want to skip this or do something else. But I really liked the flavor and texture that this gave to the cake, so I would say go for it. It's really straightforward. You just combine the ingredients and then toast it until it forms crispy little clusters. Dark chocolate ganache is the final component of this cake, and making it is pretty straightforward. You're just going to bring the coconut milk to the boil and then pour it over the other ingredients in the bowl of your stand mixer. After about 4 minutes, the chocolate will have melted and you can start mixing. So Claire said to mix this for 6 to 8 minutes until the chocolate ganache started to lose its sheen and it was setting up. She said it wouldn't be as thick as frosting, but it would be close. In my experience, mixing this for 6 minutes, it looked like chocolate buttercream icing. It was super light and fluffy, it was very set up, and it didn't look anything like Claire's did in the Bon Appetit video. So Claire's was very pourable and dark still, and that's what mine looked like after maybe only 2 to 3 minutes of mixing. You can see here though that I did run into issues. My cake was not fully cooled, and so as I started smearing the ganache around and trying to get some waves in it, it started melting. Had the cake been fully cooled, I would have been able to get a nice kind of wave pattern like on my salted caramel chocolate tart. This kind of flat surface is the best I was able to do. So then I just topped with the toasted topping, and this is the finished product. All right, so the cake has been resting for about an hour. It's a little bit warm still. This took a lot longer to cool than I thought it would, so I wish I had put it in the refrigerator or something to bring the temperature down, but I'm really excited to taste it. It looks great, but let's see. So texture looks dense, which is what Claire said it would be. It does seem fully cooked in the center. Oh my gosh. This is so rich. The texture is super dense. It's like a really fudgy brownie. There's a lot of texture going on. It's really kind of smooth and fudgy, but with some nice kind of chew in the background. And then the topping here with the kind of candied coconut and almonds, there's a nice crunch to it. This is so good. A lot of times gluten-free baked goods are really kind of tough and disappointing. You wouldn't know this was gluten-free. This is absolutely incredible. So overall, I'm really happy with how this chocolate coconut macaroon cake turned out. The flavor is exactly what I was looking for. The cake texture is so much moister, richer, and more indulgent than I had expected. So I am super satisfied with this recipe. It is a little bit time consuming. There are a lot of steps. There are a lot of kind of unique ingredients, but the overall process is not complicated. The recipe was very easy to follow. And really the only hiccup I had was not cooling my cake enough before icing it with the ganache. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe test. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. And when you make this cake, please tag me in your post on Instagram. I would love to see how this worked out for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.